Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books. I always forget to tell people to subscribe and all that kind of stuff. So if you would like to subscribe, this is my next installment of reading through Earth User's Guide to Permaculture. I'm going to finish up the one on climates and microclimates, which I didn't quite finish before, and then just read the paragraph on soils. I found the paragraph on soils kind of hard going. It's hard for me to get interested in soils, even though I know that they're absolutely vital. Knowing about it is absolutely vital, so I pushed myself through. I wasn't as organized. I wasn't taking notes, so I just sort of underlined things, and I'm just going to try to go through real quick. Now, I started to talk about my climate last time. Climate consists of precipitation, wind, and radiation, or how much of the sun's heat shines down. But then it goes into microclimates. Microclimates occur naturally, and they occur because of the lay of the land, like if there's a slope or if it's flat, how the sun hits it, what kind of soil is there, how much water it gets, how much wind, just all sorts of factors play in creating different microclimates over one piece of land. So that was interesting to learn about. And she has all sorts of neat diagrams, which I like looking at and trying to figure out what they mean, what they're illustrating. Anyway, so she starts to talk about soils. Wait, did I skip into soils? No. Okay. This is what she says about soils. Soil used to be considered the least important factor in determining microclimate, but we now know that the moisture in soils has a major impact on climate stability. Soil texture and structure affect the absorption, shedding, or evaporation of water. Soil types give rise to specific local effects and affect what can be grown. So I know that my type of soil is clay, and it's very acidic. Then she goes on to water bodies, what water bodies do, because water gains and loses heat more slowly, so that affects the land around it, which I found interesting. And then, I think I said this before, artificial structures affect things too, and I was complaining about how they build these great big houses with these dark roofs on these tiny lawns. That's so bad. Anyway, this chart here, I tried to start it. Oh, I should have brought it over. I didn't fill it in all the way, but it's across the top. It says microclimate factors, and then back, it's somebody doing a study of their yard, so it's like a sample. So they have it divided into back fence, side fence, eastern boundary, courtyard, front yard. So I did this too. I don't know why I didn't bring it with me so that I could show you, but I did the different parts. Like I have a big garden on the back southwest side of the house. So I did that, and then the front garden, which is really shaded, and then I have a lawn, and then I have another garden over here, and then I have like trees in the back. So I broke it down like that, and they started to fill it out. The different factors are topography, so that's aspect or sun, slope, wind. In the soil, it's cover, color, texture, moisture. For vegetation, it's bare, grass, shrubs, trees. Water, it's the runoff, how it runs off. Structures, windbreak, wind funnel. Color, increases heat, increases cold. So that's the whole, if you can see, right along here. Those are all the different categories, and then these are the places, the different microclimates in the yard. And then you go through and you try to figure it out. Well, it takes a lot longer than you think it would to figure it out. So I haven't, and mine is incomplete. And then she did this nice drawing of the house and where all the different things are as the sample, but I don't think I'm going to go into that for my house. And then she runs through vegetation, what vegetation does. It absorbs heat and light. It acts as a carbon sink. It provides habitat, windbreaks, sun traps, shelter belts, which she never defined that. fire belts and fire breaks. It regulates soil temperature. It filters dust, disease, and excessive moisture from winds. It has other characteristics too. Anyway, so that was about microclimates. And then she went on to soils. So soil science is like a new field because soil is incredibly complex and it's full of living organisms. And they all serve a purpose. So she says, some ecologists say that the greatest task on earth is to restore soils to a healthy state, and that we ignore this at our peril. And the ethical task is to respect and leave untouched all naturally occurring soils that support unique ecosystems, repair and protect all damaged soil, respect soils as living organisms. Our design aims for soils are to carry out a whole site soil analysis, recognize and repair damaged soils, choose and use nutrients strategically. So, and she goes into how to analyze your soil. And a healthy, productive soil has a balance of moisture, gases. I had never thought about gases in soil, mineral fractions, microorganisms, and organic matter. And then she has, and this would be fun to do with the 5-year-old. You go and you dig 3 different places in your yard, and then you put some in, and then you put water in, and you let it sit for a while, and you see how it separates, and you can analyze what's going on. So there's heavy clay soil, which is what I have, loam, and sand. And those are the 3 different ways that it will respond if you dig it up, put it in a bottle or a jar of water, and let it sit for a couple of days. So let's see, water in soil is a weak acid or alkaline solution, carrying the soluble nutrients that plants absorb through their root system. All plant nutrients exist in water-soluble forms. So you want your pH range of your soil to be between 5.5 to 8.0. And, varying, plants vary on, which end of that they flourish the best in. The best solution for soil problems is always the addition of organic material. So, because that's how soils work. They break down organic material, and that's what enriches them. And so when you try to do it chemically, like you test it and then you say, oh, it needs this or it needs that, it's really, really overly simplistic. Like you have a lot of those fertilizers that say 5, 10, 5, or whatever it is. I don't go near them. But that's really a terrible oversimplification and often causes a lot of harm. So what you just wanted to be doing is constantly putting organic matter into the soil, and that will heal it remarkably quickly. They've discovered soil's really resilient. Let's see. Moisture moves from gas to liquid depending on air pressure and temperature. In soils, moisture as a gas moves upward due to evaporation from wind or sun, or the pull of the water from the roots to the leaves due to transpiration. Is that how you say that? Transpiration? Let's see. Overwatering leads to leaching, which is the opposite of salination. Salination? Nutrient salts are washed down out of the root zone into the deep layers of soil. So that, I think, happens in my yard because part of my garden is on a hill, and I think a lot of time, and my vegetable beds are at the very top, and I think that happens that because it's been raining so much here that it just washes out and down the hill. I don't know what to do about that. We just keep putting more compost on and more mulch on. I guess I should find out from this what to do, but I haven't. I have to sit down and think about practically what I need to do. So scientists have recently declared that soil and vegetation moisture are extremely important in maintaining climate stability. Soils must not dry out due to poor farming methods and vegetation removal. In permaculture, keeping moisture in soils is important for plant growth. Then she refers us to another chapter. Okay, gases in soil. I'd never thought of the fact that soil has gas in it. Gases in soils change pressure and type at different times of the day and at different seasons. They also move into and out of soils. How freely they move depends to some extent on the texture and structure of the soil. Gases in the air are exchanged with those given off by plant roots and soil microorganisms. If there is adequate oxygen, then soil tends to be sweet smelling. If there's little oxygen, then it tends to smell rotten. And it's recently been found that ethylene gas is particularly important because when it is given off, organic matter is broken down. Ethylene gas is the ripening gas for, apples and bananas. And there's actually an ethylene cycle that they've discovered. And it's important to enriching soils. So, and then she talks about mineral fractions in soils. And this is why our food that is now grown in this industrial way, in this monoculture where they just use these all sorts of chemicals and that sort of thing, and the soil itself is depleted of nutrients and micronutrients, and so the food that we eat now is not as nutritious as the food was, say, 100 years ago. So that's really bad. Our food is becoming less and less nutritious. So that's why it's good to start growing your own and buy from farmers markets and stuff, because industrial grown food is not, it's just not as good for you. And then she has this list of acid and alkaline tolerance, the tolerance of different plants. So I have in the quite acid, that's 4 to 6, whatever it is, pH. I'm growing blueberries, chestnuts, conifers, dandelions, potatoes, sweet potato. And I wonder if my blueberries didn't do very well this year. So maybe it got washed out, or the pH isn't right, is actually what I want to say. And then slightly acid apple. We are trying to grow apple trees. They are not doing well. I want to grow beans. We are growing peaches. They didn't do so well this year. Pumpkins do well, and strawberries do well in my garden. Tomatoes do well, and my turnips are doing well. So maybe I have slightly acidic soil, because that column, the most things that I grow are doing the best. And then neutral to alkaline, 7.0 to 7.5. I have asparagus, but the asparagus is growing out of the strawberry bed. So if strawberries need slightly acid and asparagus need neutral to alkaline, why are they grown together? But they are typically grown together. Broccoli, I had no luck with my broccoli. Cabbage, carrots, my carrots don't do so well. My lettuces did well, my onions did well. Anyway, so it's just, I have all these things planted together. And maybe this is a reason why some things aren't doing so well and others are. So she says it's not really possible to have too much organic matter in a food garden. And she says, organic matter is anything that was once living. Food scraps, grass clippings, hay, straw, leaves, sawdust, and even fur coats, dead cats, jute bags, old cotton curtains, and your favorite old jeans. All of those break down. They become part of the soil nutrient bank, and they become humus. Humus is what you eat, and humus is the soil, right? Is that right? A fine, sticky, sweet-smelling, nutrient-rich substance which slowly releases plant and animal micronutrients. So organic matter is the very best soil improver. It especially improves soil structure. Then she talks about all the soil abuse that we've been doing. We remove the surface vegetation when you do the tilling and you expose all that bare earth. That's horrible. The application of artificial fertilizers is horrible. Um, biocides are terrible. Vegetation clearing and water misuse. Soil salinity is a worldwide problem and occurs because the salts used by the plants for their mineral nutrition, which are normally distributed in correct proportions through the first 2 meters of soil. So they need the first 2 meters of topsoil. That's what they need to be micronutrient rich. They're concentrated into a narrow layer because they keep reusing the soil over and over again. So they only put it on this narrow layer and near the surface, and so all the salts accumulate there and they become toxic. Inappropriate farming methods. Today, many farmers direct drill seeds into subsoil, but before, the plowshares invert the soil and then harrow it to break the clods into fine tilth. This puts poor quality subsoil on top of the good topsoil and allows the fine, now structureless soil to wash away, blow away, and dry out. So now they've learned, and now they're doing it a little bit better. Let's see, and she goes on about various things, but then she has the strategies for repairing and rehabilitating soil. So land shaping. So if the topsoil is getting washed off, create terraces or something that will hold it. Cover soils, grow things over it to keep it from washing away. Keep the water in soils. Keep soils in place. Again, a lot of this is just growing the right kind of plants over it. Feed your soil by green manuring. This is when crops are planted specifically in order to be cut and returned to the soil. So like I have comfrey growing out there, and we're supposed to chop it up and just lay it on the ground and let it break down, and that will enrich the soil. They call it chop and drop. Legumes. I just found this out like a couple months ago, that legumes are nitrogen fixers. They actually have more nitrogen than they need in their roots, so it leaches out into the soil. And so things, peas and beans and that sort of thing is a really good cover crop to grow. Other cover crops that sort of give the soil more structure are pumpkins and potatoes. They're good for hard, compacted soils. They'll go in, the roots will go in and break it up and spread the nutrients. Organic mulches, that's what I mostly do, is we're mostly putting wood chips and that sort of thing. Animal manures, and then compost. She's got a recipe for making compost. She talks about nutrient broths, which I think in America we call these compost teas, where you just soak plants like comfrey in water, and then you spray the water on the soil. Inoculants is when you take plants and animal, what do I want? Matter, and then you soak it and ferment it, and then you spray it. Biofertilizer, she goes on a bit about those. Apparently, that's something they're doing in the lab as a more organic alternative to chemical fertilizers, and she has a lot of hope for them. And then she says that farmers would use this traditional breakdown of soil, and it was actually pretty wise. They could tell what was going on by just smelling and feeling the soil, even tasting it. So this, she has a chart that talks about the traditional classifications. And mine, I have clay type soil. And it says here, vegetation, if you have azalea, berries, conifer, dandelion, and dock, all that stuff just grows everywhere where I am. It's an acid soil, usually leached, often compacted with poor drainage. Another thing, it says, I know I have, what do you call them? Dead something nettles. Forget the name of it, but I just noticed it's growing in my front yard in the shady area, and that says excess nitrogen. So I can't ever get it right. Some places I don't have enough nitrogen. Some places I have too much. It says low microorganism content. There's nettles growing all over. All right. anyway, it goes through with how they would, they would smell the soil. If it smelled sour, that meant lack of oxygen. If it was sweet and earthy, it was high oxygen. If it smells kind of garlicky, that means there's arsenic in the soil. And taste, if it's smooth and slippery, it's acidic. If it tastes like a weak soda, it's alkaline or mineral. And then if you look at the soil life, worms. I have so many worms in my front yard. Good moisture content, rich in organic matter and nutrients. They always wash up onto my driveway whenever it rains. When you go out there, it's like this graveyard of earthworms. Ants. When we first moved into the house, our front yard was awful, and it was covered with ant hills. And it says ants, dry or sandy soils. It was. I think the ants did it. They make it sandy by digging their ant hills, and it took us a few years to get rid of those ants. This is funny because this is from Australia, so she goes on slugs and snails. I don't have too much trouble with them, even though it's very rainy, but so far it hasn't been a problem. Skinks and lizards, I never see those. And then she says wombats. We don't have any wombats around here. How soil handles, does it shrink and swell? Does it repel the water? How does it run off? Is it fast draining? Is it slow draining? And then just to know the history of your land. What was it used for before? Mine was probably farmland. In fact, when we first moved in, they still had a big orchard right across. There's a little valley where a pond and a creek is dividing my yard from this housing development out there, but that used to be an orchard. So I'm pretty sure that my property a long time ago was farmland. So let's see, is that the end of the soil? Oh my gosh, 21 minutes again. Oh my goodness. So it takes a lot. So I'm starting a new reading schedule where I'm going to get up early and I'm going to devote an hour to either reading that, or on alternate days, I'm going to read Compassion and Conviction. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to read Evicted, which is my other nonfiction read. And then I just started because I'm doing this 5K for Catholics for Housing. It's a help pay the rent fundraiser to help local people, get enough money to cover their rent. And then at night, I'm going to read The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. So, all right. So if you listened to this, you're amazing, because it's just me repeating it so that I can try to retain some of it. But anyway, happy gardening and happy reading, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.